Vladimir Putin's story is one of ambition, power, and the reshaping of a nation. Born in Leningrad, now St. Petersburg, in 1952, Putin's early life was marked by the shadow of World War II. This experience profoundly shaped his worldview, instilling in him a deep sense of patriotism and a belief in the importance of strength. Putin's path led him to the KGB, the Soviet Union's feared intelligence agency, where he honed his skills in espionage and political maneuvering. After the fall of the Soviet Union, Putin transitioned to politics, rising through the ranks of the newly formed Russian Federation. In 1999, Boris Yeltsin, Russia's first president, tapped Putin as prime minister. At the time, Russia was grappling with economic instability and political turmoil. Putin, with his KGB background and reputation for decisiveness, was seen as a stabilizing force. He quickly consolidated power, taking a hard line against Chechen separatists and reasserting control over the media. When Yeltsin unexpectedly resigned in December 1999, Putin became acting president, inheriting a country in transition and a legacy of uncertainty. Putin's rise to power was swift and strategic. He projected an image of strength and stability, appealing to a nation weary of chaos. His KGB experience provided him with a network of connections and a deep understanding of power dynamics. Putin's early years in office were marked by a focus on restoring order and reasserting Russia's place on the world stage. He implemented economic reforms, cracked down on oligarchs who had amassed vast wealth and political influence, and sought to rebuild the military. Putin's transformation from a mid-level intelligence officer to the president of a nuclear-armed power is a remarkable tale of ambition and opportunity. His background, skills, and the political landscape of the time all converged to propel him to the forefront of Russian politics. Vladimir Putin's leadership style is often described as authoritarian and centralized. He has built a system of governance where power is concentrated in the hands of the presidency, with limited checks and balances. Putin's rule has been marked by a crackdown on dissent, control over the media, and a weakening of democratic institutions. Critics accuse him of creating a climate of fear and silencing opposition voices. One of the hallmarks of Putin's rule has been his control over the media. Independent media outlets have been harassed, intimidated, and shut down. Journalists who dare to criticize the Kremlin face censorship, legal persecution, and even physical violence. The result is a media landscape dominated by state-controlled outlets that toe the government line, limiting public access to alternative viewpoints. Putin's government has also systematically targeted opposition figures and groups. Alexei Navalny, Putin's most prominent critic, was poisoned with a nerve agent in 2020 and subsequently imprisoned upon his return to Russia. Other opposition figures have faced similar fates, forced into exile or silenced through legal means. Peaceful protests have been met with police brutality and mass arrests, sending a clear message that dissent will not be tolerated. Putin's grip on power extends beyond the media and political opposition. He has also sought to control the judiciary, the legislature, and other institutions that could potentially challenge his authority. Independent judges have been removed from their posts, and laws have been passed to restrict the activities of NGOs and civil society organizations. This systematic dismantling of checks and balances has cemented Putin's control over the levers of power in Russia. Vladimir Putin's domestic agenda has been characterized by a focus on stability, economic growth, and the restoration of Russia's status as a great power. Upon assuming the presidency, he inherited a country grappling with economic turmoil and social unrest following the collapse of the Soviet Union. Putin's initial priority was to stabilize the economy, which he achieved through a combination of fiscal discipline, market reforms, and rising oil prices. This economic stability proved crucial in consolidating his power and garnering public support. However, Putin's economic model has been criticized for its reliance on natural resources, particularly oil and gas exports, making Russia vulnerable to global price fluctuations. Corruption remains endemic, hindering economic diversification and investment. While some segments of society have benefited from economic growth, many Russians continue to struggle with low living standards, limited access to healthcare, and a widening gap between rich and poor. Beyond the economy, Putin has sought to restore a sense of national pride and identity. He has promoted traditional values, embraced the Russian Orthodox Church, and positioned himself as a defender of Russian culture and heritage. This appeal to patriotism and nationalism has resonated with many Russians, particularly those nostalgic for the Soviet era, when Russia was a global superpower. Putin's domestic agenda has been marked by a mix of successes and failures. While he has brought stability and economic growth, critics argue that these have come at the expense of democratic freedoms, human rights, and the rule of law. His legacy will likely be debated for decades to come as Russia continues to grapple with the challenges of modernization, corruption, and its place in the world. Section 4. Russia resurgent, Putin on the world stage.